something else I had on here on my list was if God is a sovereign God, then how do people have free will? How do we get to choose if He's a sovereign God?
Mm-hmm.
How would you answer?
Well, I have people ask me that all the time. I had a lady in my office a few months ago whose husband died, and her son had died a couple of years before,
Right.
and she claims to be a Christian. And she said to me, she goes, "Well, I want you to know," and she just came right out and said this. She goes, "I want you to know I do not believe in the sovereignty of God." Now, I don't ultimately know what she meant by that, but I wanted to say, well, then you don't believe in God then, because God is sovereign.
Sure.
And so a lot of people say, if God is sovereign, I always like to say, well, stop, since God is sovereign. Because the sovereignty of God is something that is clearly taught in Scripture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let me just read you a passage of Scripture just to highlight this. It'll serve us well in this conversation. Psalms 93, verse 1, "The Lord reigns. He is robed in majesty. The Lord is robed. He has put on strength as his belt. Yes, the world is established. It shall never be moved. Your throne is established from old. You are from everlasting." So clearly the sovereignty of God is taught throughout the Bible. And so when we say God is sovereign, we're saying that God is free to do whatever He chooses.
Mm-hmm.
God is the King of Kings. He's the Lord of Lords. He's the ruler of all things. There's nothing that can thwart His decrees nor His divine purposes. So God is sovereign. So how does that relate to the free will of man? Well, God in His sovereignty created man with free will.
That's what yeah.
So that's the simple answer.
Sure.
Is that God not only chooses or determines the end, but He also determines the means to an end.
Yeah.
And so you go back to the Garden of Eden, people often say, well, if God in His infinite foreknowledge knew that Adam and Eve would rebel against Him, then why did He create them with free will? Why didn't He just create them with a heart bent toward loving Him already? Why did God give them the opportunity to choose if He is a loving God? Well, the fact that He gave them the free will to choose is because He is a loving God. I mean, we live in a day where, and rightly so, where men are finally being held accountable for their abuse upon women. Many marriages, many relationships, it's more of a forced love, and men feel like they have the right to force themselves upon a person. When a man forces himself, when he forces his perverted idea of love upon a woman today, we call that rape.
Right.
So what if God forced His idea of love upon Adam and Eve? What would we call that today? And so the reality is that God in His love did not force His love upon them, but He created them with free will.
Right.
God wanted them to choose to love Him.
Sure. Yeah.
And really, that's really to say that we are created in the image of God. That is the highlight of humanity, is that we allow someone to choose.
Yeah.
And God allowed Adam and Eve to choose, and God even told them what to choose, and God even told them the consequences if they chose wrong, and they chose to rebel against God. They rebel against God. So God is sovereign, and God created man with free will, and in His sovereignty, not only did He choose the end, He chose the means to that end.